Hello again, and welcome back. I'm still just a guy who loves to make props and stuff, and in this video build, I'm making the Infinity Space Stone, aka the Tesseract. In one form or another, the Space Stone has actually appeared in 10 Marvel movies so far, so there are many shapes to choose from. I could just make a simple stone with a light in it, or just a Tesseract cube, or even a gemstone like the comic books. But as you can see, I went with the Nick Fury briefcase version of the Tesseract cube, mainly because it looks so damn cool. And besides, this prop would be a great project for me to finally learn how to use Fusion 360. Now, I'm not going to try and explain how I made this in Fusion, but I will tell you this. Like all things, getting past the first several hours of trial and error, I love the feeling you get when you suddenly realize you spend more time on the design and drawing, rather than figuring out how to draw it, if that makes any sense. So it's safe to say, I feel I got the hang of this now, and I will definitely use Fusion 360 a lot going forward with my prop making. Anyhow, I'm really pleased with how the prints came out. They actually ended up better than I hoped. So I've put the files up on Thingiverse if you're looking to make the same prop. This next part, you know it all too well. Just a whole lot of sanding and filing to get it as smooth as possible before priming it. I actually used some filler primer and I did some more sanding between the coats. The one piece I had to split before printing it got glued back together, and then it was all set for the paint job. But first, going back to the piece of floorboard I had prepared in the beginning, I traced out where I needed to make some cuts. The plan was to build a light box within the briefcase, and to hopefully mimic the techno-looking patterns that seem to be lighting up. Just a bit of cleanup to sharpen up the edges, and then I painted it all black. To make the actual patterns, I used a piece of clear plexiglass that I painted black on one side. And then I planned to carve in my patterns using my Dremel. You only get one go at this, so not to mess it up totally, I did some test pieces to get the feel of it. I believe the important thing is to keep a constant pressure and speed. And of course, it helps to be accurate too. It took a while, but I was really happy with the result in the end. Using some LED light strips in the bottom of the briefcase, I'm sure they would light up really cool. So as not to look like one big plate, but rather several different components, I decided to use a sheet of EVA foam on top, which I cut into several random looking pieces. It was actually the crevices between them I was looking for. Now it actually looks like it's been made from several parts. And then I applied some Mod Podge before painting it with some plain acrylic paints. But keep in mind, acrylic paints tend to cure darker than what you've mixed up. And as this prop would need quite a bit of lighting, I needed a way to easily access the batteries. So I tried to design the fan looking detail to have some magnets attached to it, and hopefully it could be pulled off and on easily. And then it was time for the paint job. Now, whenever you plan to airbrush a metallic paint, it's usually best to start with a high glossy black base coat. But in this case, I was looking to make some of the parts look more like brushed aluminum, and I've had some luck with this in the past, whenever I've used more of a dull black base coat, so hoping to do the same this time. I tried out a couple of different paints and techniques of applying it, and I ended up using the Alclad black chrome paint, simply because it looks the best. And as much as I could, I tried not to apply it evenly all across. It just looks more believable this way. I'm not sure if it looks like brushed aluminum yet, but it's close enough to what I wanted. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm a bit fed up with masking off everything, every single time I need to paint something. So instead, I went old school and used a plain brush to paint on the rest of the details. It ended up looking decent. I added some more details to the base plate. And then I finished off the numpad detail. It would hold the on-off switch, and I tried to make it more interesting by adding a sort of a power meter to it. If it ends up not looking good, I can always just paint over it. And with everything finally painted and finished, it was time for the best and most fun part of this build, putting it all together. It actually ended up becoming a sort of a pre-made kit of some sort at the end, and I believe it only took me over an hour to assemble everything. In my house, everyone is kinda in on the hobby, so this time around I had my stepdad help build me the actual light box, all with the LED strips, the LED that would go inside the cube and all the wiring that goes with it. I simply had to slide on the last piece. The battery door was working nicely, and even the numpad looked cool. Might have to put on some numbers though. Almost completely forgetting about the top lid, I decided to make something simple out of EVA foam, keeping to the same color scheme and general look of it to make it blend in. For the actual Tesseract cube, I did a lot of testing, and eventually I want to make a clear blue resin cast. But for the time being, I used an acrylic cube, which I sanded down and stuffed with some cotton, to get the light more diffused. Probably the same way you've seen a lot of makers do it. And that was the last piece of work I did on this prop. This was a really fun build, and it's actually the second prop I've made in a row that I haven't applied any kind of weathering to. It's probably gonna sit on the shelf for a while, and then I'll go back to it and do a proper resin cast and some light weathering to it before I call it all done. And that was it for this build. I hope you liked it. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll try and share my next build with you. Thanks for watching.